Welcome to Building Wealthy Habits podcast. Now, this features content and conversations with me, Randy Barkley, Jeremiah Lee, along with Laura Lee. On this podcast, we share financial advice from a team of certified financial planners, including a California licensed attorney, an MBA professional with collective experience of over 40 years.
Welcome to Building Wealthy Habits. Today we're talking with Marie Hare. We're talking about hospitality. This is the third episode in a three-part series where we are talking about short-term rentals. First, we talked about the finances. Then we talked about actually buying a short-term rental. Now we're talking about the hospitality of how do you run a short-term rental. This episode is for anyone who has an interest in diversifying their portfolios, in buying real estate, in running an Airbnb, or even just renting out their vacation home. This is some great content, and I hope you enjoy the episode.
All right. Welcome back to Building Wealthy Habits. This is the third part of a three-part series that we recorded on short-term rentals. I'm so excited for this last and final episode. We are going to focus on all things hospitality and guest services related. And there is no one better than to have my friend Marie Hare on our podcast today. She is a known expert in this field. She founded a company called To Dwell Here together with her husband, Tyler, in 2020. Together, they have a real passion for personalized hospitality and incredible design. Marie set out to prove that a beautiful home should always be paired with equally amazing hospitality. And as a result, To Dwell Here has become the leading brand in the Southern California mountains because of their concierge-like service, creativity, and guest experience, and obsession with detailed property care. Today, To Dwell Here manages almost 30 incredible Airbnbs in Southern California and Park City, Utah, 6 of which they own personally. So as you can tell, she is quite the expert on the topic. Marie, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm coming to you from my little shipping container office. Fun fact for your listeners.
I would have never guessed. It is absolutely beautiful. I love it. All right, so the last 2 episodes, which we talked about before in preparation, we talked about different aspects of owning short-term rental properties. So we started off by talking about the financial and the legal aspects, and then we had an episode where we talked about with real estate professionals about kind of the ins and outs of looking at property for the purposes of short-term rental. And now we want to talk all about hospitality. And I think that there's a lot of people, if you agree, that would underestimate the amount of time it takes to be an ideal short-term rental owner. What do you think? Would you agree with that statement?
That is exactly why I have a job or a business, is because a lot of people realize they can't do it themselves. And that's where we can come in alongside them and make the experience both a balance between what is going to knock the socks off for our guests and then also really serve our clients well, the homeowners, protect their home, make them a lot of revenue. So we can kind of balance that and tailor it to whatever our clients are, their level of involvement, what they're wanting out of it.
And then
That's great. We talked in the last episodes about the difference when you're buying a property, what you're looking for. And Simone and Brooke helped talk us through kind of the, do you want a pool? Do you want an A-frame? Kind of the buying options. And I feel like when you walk into a house, if you're going to take it on as a client, part of it, you have the house already, but now it's how do you set it up? And I feel like that's a big part of your hospitality is the functional. We need to have towels. We need to have, nice dishes. We need to have these things. There's also the hospitables. When people come in, they need to have a certain feeling of as they enter in that house. And I feel like all the properties have been of yours. You do such a good job of blending those two. There's a closet that has extra soap and extra towels and all the functional things that people need, and that makes your life easy. But then also when you walk in, you just have this immediate aesthetic of, like I'm here, like I've made it. I feel like you've worked really hard to create that balance, but you make it look very effortlessly. I feel like that's something that people don't always appreciate, the balance of the practical and the beautiful.
Yeah, the art and the science behind it. And I think that's what's making Airbnb a formidable competitor to hotels is that you get to feel more at home. We can have a closet full of toys for the kids. I am my own like target guest. And so I want to set up the home because in a way that I will enjoy it the most. If parents are not able to relax because their kids have, it's a house full of white upholstery and, like too many breakables or whatever, then nobody's going to have fun. And so I think, really understanding the intentionality of how we can set up a room, how we can cater to the kids so that the adults also get to just like take a deep breath and relax. I think that's what is kind of a key differentiator, that will not only set our properties apart from others, but will make staying at an Airbnb a little bit more enjoyable for families, especially than maybe staying at a hotel.
Yeah, a lot more enjoyable. Like the chances that we've had to be at Airbnbs where you've got a kitchen. You can put your kids to bed, but you can still go in the other room and enjoy a movie or time together without, once it's lights out in the hotel room, it's like, okay, we're just staring at our phones quietly, while the kids sleep. Right. But I do want to start out. I love what you said about your target audience is you and your family, because in preparation for this, I went to your website and I pulled off your vision or mission statement, and I love it. It says, with 3 small kids, ages 7, 5, and 4, our family and the faith that holds us all together is the lens for how we view hospitality. Our mission is to provide inspiring places for people to spend intentional time together, because even the most well-designed home is meaningless if not for those who dwell within. And I love that. There's so much purpose. There's a richness to, when we're talking about hospitality today, we're not talking about throwing cookies on a plate and making sure the towels are all clean in the bathroom. Okay, sure. There's a practical aspect to making sure the place is clean and inviting, but you're talking about creating a space for intentional, purposeful time together, whatever that family construct or that group of people is. And so I thought you could just kind of share like some guideposts or some memories, like what contributed to you creating that vision?
Yeah, so it really, it kind of came during COVID. We went live with our very first property, July of 2020. So we closed on it February and demoed it February of 2020 when the whole world shut down, and we had this worry that we'd made a terrible mistake, that this was terrible timing. And it actually turned out to be the best timing, because when we went live in July of 2020, we were hoping to get a couple weekends booked, and our entire year books out the weekends that we went live, because people were so desperate to have a safe place to be together as a family. They hadn't seen, their parents or relatives or whatever for, a very long time, and they didn't feel comfortable at a hotel. And so I saw, and in the booking kind of questionnaire that they answer when they're making a reservation, I would ask, like, what's the purpose of your trip? And the stories that people are willing to throw out there, they were grieving the loss of a loved one and they needed a retreat, or they, the kids hadn't even been outdoors in 6 months and they needed a place where the kids had a little bit of freedom. These kinds of things and the stories made me realize this is so much more than just, an investment property. This is a place that we can give families time together. We're creating memories. We're creating moments where they can have this intentional time spent together. And a lot of people are going to view short-term rentals as kind of the counterpart to long-term rentals. And, it's just a difference on what cash flow might look like or the effort. But you can't have the same approach, because these are people's vacations that you're talking about that they've been planning for 6 months. We've hosted, hundreds of anniversaries, birthdays, even weddings. We've had weddings on our decks. These are important moments for families or friends. And we get to come alongside of that and make them feel so incredibly welcome. that was kind of initially what set us apart from, at the time, a lot of short-term rentals were they lost that piece of it, that they were welcoming people. It was more that they if you read their listing on Airbnb, there were so many rules, and at the end of each rule it said, or you will be fined. Like guests weren't allowed to have their shoes on inside the house. They were not allowed to, X, Y, and Z. So it really felt very contractual, short-term rentals at that time, much like a long-term rental. You have your tenant signing this lease agreement, and at the end you can ding them if they don't return the property in the exact same way. They were taking that same approach to short-term rentals, where it was very contractual. They still called them renters, not guests. And so we kind of just did it differently. And we didn't have a goal initially of creating this company around it, but it just happened because we did stand out from what a lot of people were experiencing in the short-term rental market. And it came at a great time where luckily, my husband said when we first started, this can't be an expensive hobby, because we were buying houses.
Right. It's like no joke. It's not like a nickel in the bucket. It's like
Right. So one of our biggest marital fights was about purchasing our very
we're getting personal, property. Guys. We're getting personal.
We're good now. He has now said you were right, which was after all these years. But yeah, our very first property, it felt like this huge risk that we were taking. And a lot of, I knew it would work because I knew that there was a high demand for, especially in our local mountains. There's only one resort that wasn't great. It's the closest mountain for all of Southern California. If you want to go to the snow, you're going to go to our local mountains. So there's a lot of demand to escape the heat, escape the cities, go to the mountains. But every single short-term rental up there was like your grandmother's cabin that hadn't been touched since the 60s or 70s. And you just had to accept it. And so we came on the market with this, brand newly remodeled home that I really put all my energy into on the design and, the amenities, and it stood out. And so I think that's kind of what has, more and more of the market now is going that way, just because the competition, there is a lot more competition ever since that 2020 kind of gold rush of short-term rentals. People do have to now be more competitive. So you are going to see so many more homes that are really focused on design and hospitality. So I'm proud of what we've done, that we kind of were willing to take that leap at a time where there was nobody else doing it the same way. And I think we've proven that this is the best key to success for a short-term rental, is to focus on the people, not just the property. What makes a person feel most welcome and at ease when they are entering your home. That was a long-winded answer, Jeremiah.
That was great. No, it's so good. Well, I love it. Even what you ended with, I feel like that applies to so many businesses. I mean, very specifically to someone staying, but not focusing on what services or products, you're creating. How great is this new thing we just made? Rather to say, what is the person I'm trying to deal with, the person I'm trying to serve? What is their experience of this new product I've made? What is their experience of this new service? And even that mindset you have, it's so customer centric. I think that would allow you, and it sounds like it did allow you, to walk away from what everyone else is doing very naturally and not feel that you were charting a new path, but just feeling like, well, this is what they need. Like, this is the people I'm serving. This is what they need to experience. I think that's such a great one there.
I love what you said about, are we looking at the people over the property, and their willingness to share their stories, like on the intake form, and that you identified that so keenly as, a place of vulnerability. If they're willing to share something that's this important to them, everything from wedding, birthday, anniversary, grieving the loss of a loved one, whatever the story may be. I'm sure you've had people come from near and far. And so the pressure to quote unquote provide that experience for them at times has got to be fairly intense. Something like a wedding, like, okay, let's just make sure everything goes. I was just saying, I mean, I know you've shared with me some stories. Do you have any stories that come to mind? Because hospitality is also 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Yeah. And these people have spent a lot of money. Like, that's the other thing. They've been planning their vacation for maybe 6 months. They're putting in, a good chunk of change on the table. And we do have to deliver. There's a lot of times where there's things we can't control. The power goes out. That happens a lot in the mountains. We have absolutely no control over that. We encourage all of our clients to put generators at the homes, because that's one more thing that we can feel like we won't disappoint the guests on, is if they didn't have power for an entire day or couple days. In fact, it's been so I think that even when things are outside of our control, the guest just wants to feel very heard and seen. And when they have, a complaint, we're able to jump on it. I think that's one of our core competencies, is that, if you can't get the dishwasher to work, we'll be over there in 5 minutes, and we will, we'll personally be able to walk you through it. We have people on the mountain who, that is our key focus, is that we make sure that the guest is always well taken care of. Just the same way as if you're at a hotel and you can call down to the front desk. We have some neighbors that can be tough to deal with. And so I have personally showed up when a neighbor is complaining about something. One story that will always be, close to my heart was when we had a family that was grieving the loss of a child, and they were there to do a memorial. It had been 1 full year. And this grouchy neighbor was complaining that these people were painting rocks, and on, it wasn't even his property, painting rocks and painting a tree. And so I'm able to add another layer. A lot of neighbors of short-term rentals, they think people are there to, use and abuse the property, and they don't care. They don't have respect for the, neighborhood. They just have a very different idea in mind. They've heard all the horror stories about parties and, or squatters or something like extreme outlier examples. And so that's the image they have painted in their mind. But I can show up in person at this house and ensure that this neighbor isn't going to ruin what this family is doing, having this memorial for their young daughter. And then I can also talk to the neighbor and kind of bridge that gap between what is a better reality of who we host and who wants to enjoy the mountains with them. So I do feel like I've kind of been able to be an advocate for painting a new picture for short-term rentals and how they might be perceived by people who live there. And then at the same time, we care so much about our neighbors. They can make or break a short-term rental. If you have a neighbor who really wants to get you out, they could. With how much they report, they could report every single thing, real or not real, to the county, to just make the burden on you as a host so cumbersome that you're just ready to throw in the towel. And so we want to be good neighbors. And I've made that also very clear, that if you ever have a problem, here's my phone number. I will immediately address it. And yeah, I think that there doesn't have to be contentious relationship between guests traveling to, resort towns and then the locals who live there. There can be, the symbiotic relationship where the guests are adding so much to the economy. And we can do good by way of the neighbors for how we present ourselves.
Yeah.
But yeah, we another aspect on how we want to make it a very personal relationship with our guests is that if they are celebrating something, that birthday or anniversary, in that intake form, they might mention it. We'll follow up with, "Oh, that's so fun. How old is your son turning?" And then when they finally show up months later, we have a birthday cake. We have the, number 7 balloon in, in the living room upon their arrival. We can make it really fun and special to where there's little surprises for them. Because at the end of the day, our best marketing is repeat guests and word of mouth recommendations. And so we want every single guest to walk out of there speaking highly of us and that they want to return. Yeah.
Absolutely. I love that you called it kind of your core competency. And the word that came to my mind is like, it's your superpower. Because, the ability to, I want to touch on one point that you talked about, which is like in that case scenario in your story, you showed up personally to be able to build the bridge in such a sensitive situation between the neighbor and your tenant or your renter. And in cases where we know that you own properties in Utah and in California, in the cases where you can't show up personally, and for our listeners who might be considering purchasing a short-term rental property that's outside of their area, what sort of team have you built or what, this is your business. So for those who this maybe isn't their main business, like what would you recommend in terms of like what resources do they need to have at hand to be able to serve their clients in the way that you have?
Yeah. So if you were buying out of state, I would highly recommend considering a condominium where you are already within a building that takes care of all the exterior. Because our properties that we manage in Park City, we don't have to deal with a hot tub or the pool. It has all that for the guests, but that's not on us to take care of. We're not having to make sure the barbecue's cleaned or the fire pit is in working order. So in terms of feasibility, make it easier on yourself to ensure that those key items, those key amenities that the guest is really hoping to enjoy, they are looked after by the building. There's also, in our building, there's somebody at the front desk who can also easily answer questions, as well as, my team who's available over, phone call or on the messaging app. That it makes them feel like there is somebody, a real person who's there. And then other logistics, our cleaning team can pick up small things for us. If we want to add another, bottle of champagne for, the anniversary guest or whatever, they can do that. And then I also have somebody else who's my boots on the ground, who's just available for any of those random needs. If we have guests who are coming to the snow for the first time, I'll call her and say, let's put together a whole fun basket of snow toys and hand warmers and stuff like that. So she helps also tailor my welcome gifts to be local, unique, and fun. So I have my boots on the ground people who aren't full-time with us. We currently have 2 properties there in Park City. But it has been a much easier workload on us because so much of the effort is taken care of by the building. Now, I will say that the HOA fee is something to consider. It is going to come, at a cost, but the condo allows for people to travel with groups, and they can all rent out. It's kind of the bridge between hotel, and a single family home. So I think that's been a good testing the water for us on going to a different state is knowing that we have some like security and how the property is already going to be maintained.
Yeah. I love that. So in the last couple minutes that we have, I just wondered if you could comment on what's the future of To Dwell Here? And for any of our listeners who might be interested in staying at a To Dwell Here property, how would they do that?
So it's funny, this question, a year or two ago, my goal for our business was that someday I wanted to work with Amber Lewis. And I thought that was like a 20-year plan. And then that happened this last year. So I have to come up with a few new specific goals.
I love it. Amber Lewis tell us for the listeners, she's a well-known designer.
Yeah. And I said I will retire when we work with Amber Lewis, and I'm still here. So I'm coming up with some new goals. But I think for me, what I visualize our business to be is kind of this like plant and grow structure where, we have 20 some properties in Lake Arrowhead. And I for us to really nail the hospitality and make it a very personal experience, I don't see us having, one property in Miami, one in Colorado, one, I think for us, we want to plant and grow. So, my focus right now is Park City so that we can get more. So it justifies me having a whole team so that we can do more. So I am interested in growth, but it's all within the confines of like who we are, staying true to, really focusing on how we can do it well, not just growth for the sake of growth. So yeah, I would say that's kind of where I see us in the future. Is hopefully we're in several more cities. I do have to turn down people, when they come asking if we can manage their property, if it just isn't something that's going to make sense, or I can't know for certain that we can do it well. But yeah, I can see down the road that we will be in a few more cities. And then if you're in Park City or Lake Arrowhead, you can find us on our website. It is todwellhere.com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I wish we had twice the amount of time so we could talk more about each individual property. And I know you have more stories. But thank you so much. Thank you for joining us. I know you are an inspiration to our listeners. And again, if you're interested in staying at one of To Dwell Here's luxurious properties, you can visit their website at todwellhere.com. I hope all of our summertime listeners are starting to plan their next vacay. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys.
We have a few more things to let you know about before we go. Podcast reviews really help us to serve more people and get this information into the hands of the people who need it. Please leave us a review. Even if it's not 5 stars, we welcome the feedback.
And we invite you to let us know what topics you would like to hear more about, or what would benefit the people in your life who you're closest to. We have more resources online. Those resources are designed to help you share this great information easily with people in your life. To access those resources, please visit tricordadvisors.com.
Often we hear from clients that they wish they had talked to us sooner. If that's you, we'd be thrilled to see how financial planning can benefit your life. Email us at contact@tricordadvisors.com or simply click on the link in the show notes.
This show was produced by Graham Gardner at Model FA. Find out more about how to create a podcast for your financial planning business by visiting modelfa.com. We love creating content that's useful, resourceful, and maybe even a little entertaining. We want to make this mega universe of financial topics and advice applicable and helpful to your life.
Remember, at Tricord Advisors, we are your future's best ally.